Yeah, my question was to the panel members really about how you recruit into your organisations or services to make sure that you do reflect the youth culture in your employees, if you like, by recruiting people who've got direct experience of our communities, young people, people from different backgrounds, because they are the people who can break the stereotype and tell it as it really is. So the question is, how do you make sure that you actually recruit local young people into, whether it's the Wilson and Brent Times or the police or even councillors actually? Thank you.
Now, some young people did come and get involved in my campaign, and they had a fantastic time. You know, I also had somebody who came to me originally through Centrepoint, who was at that stage homeless, and became a huge part of my campaign, a huge part of the organisation of my campaign. So it was a pretty representative campaign, a pretty representative group of people, and as I said in the beginning, some people then thought, actually politics is for me, it's what I want to do for the rest of my life, I want to be really involved. One of the young people who came and did work experience for us changed what degree they were doing, and I'm desperate to try and persuade them in the future to become an MP or a councillor. But for lots of other people it's just part of life experience, and they really enjoyed it, and perhaps it inspired them to think that they can change something, because that's what politics is about. Ultimately, this is what it's supposed to be about. It's about groups of people coming together to change things for the better, and the skills you learn in politics are applicable in lots of other different areas. So whether or not you decide in future to go on to work for a charity, or maybe you decide to do something completely different, but in your spare time you become an activist who works in your community to make things better. That's what politics is about. So I'm always keen to hear from young people who want to get involved.
Thank you. And
a couple of quick things on this. First of all, the main job of recruitment, if you can call it that, we do is for members of Youth Parliament, and we're fabulously lucky that local authorities support that work, do it in amazingly innovative ways. And at the heart of it, you've got young people who have to stand up and say, I am from this patch and I will represent you this way. So I think that's fairly well ingrained, and I'm really proud of it. I'd come back actually to why the work that you're doing on this media summit is really important. One little case study, I was working with a young man not that long ago who was brilliant, fabulous, you know, came from a tough part of town, but had developed a huge amount of skills, was really positive, really talented young person, and he came to the point, well, let's get this on your CV. I don't have a CV. Why don't you have a CV? There's no point. Do you want to get a job? There's no point. And really, the words he said was, as soon as anyone sees my postcode, they're going to throw my CV in the bin. And that came about because there's a negative perception of him as a young person living in a certain part of London. So the work you're doing on this to kick that kind of negative stereotype up the backside is really, really important, and we should all keep doing it.
Thank you. Matt?
How do we recruit young people? Into the police service, it's directed locally, and there isn't going to be any police officers recruited in the next 2 years. Specials, volunteers, if anybody's interested, I've got my tape measure in my back pocket. No, we don't worry about height anymore, so I don't need a tape measure, it's all right. Range of volunteers, the volunteer organisation, you know, we're talking about big society, and that's a real opportunity. We've got just over 50 volunteers that help my officers be more effective by dealing with that backroom function and getting them out on the street where they need to be. As another offer, if you've got a range of skills, if you go through your youth parliament and look at, right, these are the skills, well, not so much skills because you're still learning those skills through education, but your interests, I will look and I will tally up to see where they match into areas that would interest that individual, and come and work at my police station. And I'll offer you that, and I'll nurture you in that. I'll take you through the volunteers, give you some guidance, experience, and that will give you some fantastic opportunities in life and open you up to the world that I live in.
Thank you. And your call.
Well, it's kind of interesting to kind of raise this issue of work experience, because almost everybody in my office did work experience when they first became a journalist, or when they attempted to become a journalist, because it's really important. And I guess when I kind of think back to it, it was quite a humbling experience, and it kind of made me think why I got into it in the first place. And it's kind of appropriate to this debate, because I really got into it because I was hoping to give people who don't have a voice some kind of exposure. You know, so as I say, you know, work experience is an interesting one for us, because it's something we do already, and we do. I know when I have a conversation with someone in the phone who calls me up, and if it's a local person, if they tell me they're from Wembley, if they tell me from Willesden Green, I will always prioritise that person, because they have. I mean, I'm from Manchester, you know, but somebody locally has something I will never have, which is, you know, that kind of local knowledge of when you grew up in a place, that knowledge of the issues from having grown up in a place, and of course all your kind of friends from school, parents, you know, there's a whole social network that I probably couldn't access. I probably have done over my time at the paper, but you know, we always prioritise young people, and particularly young people who come from the local area. So, you know, I can only encourage people to get in touch with us if that's something you're interested in.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Andy, because I know that's work experience with the local newspaper is something quite a lot of Brent Youth Parliament members have brought up. So if we could make that more accessible to Brent Youth Parliament members or young people in the community, that would be fantastic. And if they could get sort of an inside view as to what goes on and how news stories you know, are investigated and reported, you're obviously having a direct influence or, you know, input into how news stories are projected in the local press. So that would be fantastic. In terms of recruitment, well, from a Brent Youth Parliament perspective, we're very diverse with the children, young people that are recruited to Brent Youth Parliament. There are allocated places for children in care, for children from pupil referral units, PRUs, disabled children. So we are really inclusive, and we do have allocated places for a diverse range of young people in the borough. So we are really, you know, I can't fault Brent Youth Parliament, you know, they are really fantastic in making sure that they do intake of the diverse range of young people. From a council or political perspective, yeah, I mean, one thing that we were looking at doing with children and families was expanding the current mentoring system. One of the ideas put forward was that we should, every councillor would mentor a vulnerable child in their ward for each year of their 4-year term. And that would give a direct relationship between councillors and young people in their wards. It would give young people a really valuable opportunity to see what local representatives do. They would come along to council meetings, committee meetings. So that's something that's kind of in the pipelines at the moment that I'm kind of pressing for, is more mentoring between local representatives and young people, especially vulnerable young people in our communities. So yeah, that would be a really good shadowing opportunity. From a political perspective, we are setting up a young Labour group, which is going to be based around sort of activities, debates, and linked up to the actual Labour group in Brent as well. So that's another opportunity for young people if they are politically minded and want to know more about what we do politically, to kind of join with that.
Thank you, Councillor Shari. And I think on that note as well, any party does offer quite a variety of opportunities for young people. And in fact, the Duke of Edinburgh book last year said, because the elections were coming up, said, go and find a political party for your volunteering section, and you can do volunteering with them. So whatever your interests are. Anyone who's not a BYP member, but here's a young person. I know we've got people here from Richmond, Harrow, Hillingdon, and other boroughs. So if you have a question, please feel free to ask them.